Right, in this video clip I'm going to work through the first 40 marks or so of the WJEC Intermediate Tier Paper 2 Maths from November 17. So if we just get a running total going to see where those first 40 marks are going to take us, we've got 8, 12, 17, 20, 23, 28, 31, 38, 44. So we'll work through up until question 9. So this is where you really need to be concentrating your hardest, because if you can maximize your marks in this section, which are the sort of grade D and C questions, then you're in a really strong position to go on and score those extra marks to consolidate the C or push for a B. Okay, so question 1 is an arithmetic question. First one, calculate 8% of £3.25. Now, the Casio calculators that are available now are fantastic because you can pretty much type these things in exactly as they're presented on the test paper. The only thing we don't have on a Casio calculator is an OV button, so you do need to recognize that that actually means times. So what we're going to put into our calculator is 8% times 3.25. So 8, the percent button is above the open bracket, so we do shift percent times 3.25 equals. Turn it into a decimal, so that's equal to 0.26. Now a little word about units here. If you just left it to 0.26, you'd get full marks. If you wrote it as 0.26, you'd get full marks. If you wrote it as 26 pence, you'd get full marks. Where you would lose marks is if you ended up with, you would even get the marks that allow, which personally I don't agree with, you'd get the marks for that. What you'd lose marks for would be that or that. So all of those would be correct. Either of those would be incorrect. So you need to be very careful with your units. Of course, you may not have been taught to use the percentage button, and you could have worked that out by doing 0.08 times 3.25 or 8 over 100 times 3.25, and you get the same thing, and that would be absolutely fine. So with part B, again, I can type that in exactly as I see it, with the exception of that becomes a multiply. So 0.65 times 280, take away fraction button, 2 over 9 of becomes times 513. So you can see, with the exception of, that's exactly typed as presented on the page. Press equals 68. 3 marks. And the same with this one. So type in exactly as you see it, 3.5, the squared button is x squared, minus the square root button, 8.6. Typed on the calculator exactly as we see it. Change it to decimal. Now the only thing with this one is there is an additional instruction as to how accurate they want you to write that down. So 2 decimal places means it includes the 2 digits following the decimal point. So it's either going to be 9.31 or 9.32. To make the decision which it's closest to, look at the next digit along. If it's 5 or more, it's closer to 9.32. So if you'd have written 9.31, you would have only got 1 mark there. So 8 marks for just typing something into your calculator. Question 2, and again we can use our calculator here. what is the difference between the following times? 7:30 on the 1st of November to 13:20 on the 3rd of November. Well, 7:30:01:11 to 7:30:03:11 is 2 days. So we've got 2 full days, and then we've got to work out how much time there is between 7:30 on the 3rd of November and 13:20. Now you can do this by counting on, but you can also use the time button on your calculator. The time button on your calculator is the one that looks like a button full of punctuation, full stops and commas. So the way that this works, if I want to find out the difference between those 2 times, on my calculator I'm going to type 13 time button, 20 time button, so that's 30, 13, and then the little zeros are indicating that you're working with time, and you have to put the second one in. Take away 7 time button, 30 time button. So that's how it would go into the calculator, and then when you press equals, you can see that's 5 hours 50 minutes. So the total time difference is going to be 2 days, 5 hours and 50 minutes. So you didn't need to use the calculator for that, you could have counted on. However, it's particularly useful with a question like this. Divide 16 hours 20 minutes by 5. By far the most common mistake for this would be to write that as a decimal 16.2 or 16.20, and that's not right, because 20 minutes is out of 60 rather than out of 100, so it doesn't decimalize in that way. On your calculator, all you've got to do is use the time button, (16 hours 20 minutes) divided by 5, 3 hours 16 minutes. It just makes the whole thing so easy to do. Question 3. A number is to be written on the blank card. The mode and median of all 7 numbers are both the same. Find one possible number that can be written on the blank card. So if I'm working with the median, I need to have that as an ordered list. So the ordered list I've got would be 5, 9, and then I've got 11, 18, 20, 23, and I've got this one that I have to fit in somewhere so that the mode and the median are both the same. Now, because there are an even number of cards, it means that the median is going to go in between those two, so that there'd be 3 numbers that side, 3 numbers that side. And for the mode and the median to be the same, it means that the mode is going to be one of the numbers that already exists, so that one of them will occur twice. So either 11 can go there or 18 can go there, and it would satisfy those conditions. The middle value, if it was 11, would give you a mode of 11 too, or a middle value of 18 would give you a mode of 18 too. So you only have to write one of them, but 11 would be correct, or 18 would be correct too. Part B. One extra number is added to the following list of 3 numbers. The mean of the new list of 4 numbers is 1 less than the mean of the original 3. What was the number added to the list? So first of all, we need to work out what the mean of those 3 are, so that we can work out what 1 less is. So mean of the 3, can't spell 3, will be 8 and 13 is 21 and 6 is 27, divided by 3 is 9. So the mean of those three numbers is 9. The mean of the new list is 1 less than that. So the mean of the 4 numbers now, because there'll be 1 extra, is 9 take away 1, 8. So in order to work out what the missing number is, I know that the total of those 3 is 27. So if I can work out the total of the 4, then the difference would be the new card. If I know the mean is 8, and I know there are 4 numbers, then the total of the 4 will be 8 times 4, 32. So to find the mean, it's the total divided by the count. If you know the count and the mean, by multiplying them, you'll get the total. So the 4 cards come to 32, the 3 cards come to 27. So number added will be 32 less 27, which is 5. Now that's a really important technique to remember. As teachers, we focus a lot on how to find the mean, but less often do we bang on about if we know the mean, we can find the total. Question 4, bearings. How would the direction due west be written as a 3-figure bearing? So this is relying on your knowledge of the positions on a compass and your knowledge that bearings are angles measured, 0 is north and clockwise in that direction. So west, due west, is going to be 3 lots of 90, 270 degrees. There are 360 degrees in a full turn. A pointer is facing due south and spun clockwise, which is in that direction, through 3 3/4 full turns. In which direction will the pointer now face? Well, the 3 full turns make no difference because they're just going to return you to south. So that could be 100 3/4 full turns. You can ignore the 100. But the 3/4 full turns in a clockwise direction will take you 1/4 to west, 2/4 to north, 3/4 to east. Part C. What is the bearing of point P from point A? So that's telling you the from point A means you were standing at A with your compass, you're facing north, and then you're turning in this clockwise direction until you are facing P. And the angle that you've turned through is the bearing. Now hopefully you can see there that you've turned through a full half turn, which is 180, plus another 40, which is 220 degrees. Question 5, area of trapezium. Now this is one of the few formulae that you're given on the front of the paper, so you don't need to remember this one, you just need to know how to make it work. So the parallel sides are A and B. They don't always, the question doesn't always, or a trapezium doesn't always have to have the parallel sides running horizontally. There's no reason why they don't put or give you a trapezium which is facing vertically, in which case the A and B are still the parallel sides. So it's important that you make that connection between the diagram you're given and the one on the formula sheet. So A is 8.2, B is 7.3, or the other way around, doesn't matter, and H is 9.4. The area equals a half bracket a plus b h. Now, the only thing that you need to be careful of with this is when you type this into the calculator, you need to add multiplications between the half and the bracket and the closed bracket, the 9.4. That's because we've gone from a formula given in algebra, where in algebra we don't put the multiplications in because they look like x's, but as soon as we replace the letters with numbers, it's no longer a line of algebra, it's a line of arithmetic, so we need to include those multiplications. So now we can type it in exactly as we see it. So fraction, you could just type in 0.5 if you like, but I like to type it in the same way that it's written. Times, open bracket, 8.2 plus 17.3, close bracket, times 9.4 equals 119.85. Now this is one where it's important that you read the question carefully, or once you've worked out your answer, go back and check, because in this there's an additional instruction. You must give the units of your answer. So even though I've done all the hard maths there, if I move on, I'm not going to get full marks. I'm only going to get 2 for that, because I haven't written down the units. We've calculated an area, which means the units are squared, meters squared, kilometers squared, or in this case, centimeters squared. So just writing that down is going to give you correct marks, get you that last mark. Question 6. Express 54 as a percentage of 129. And once again here, you've got the additional instruction, give your answer to the nearest whole number. So 54 as a percentage of 129 means as a fraction, you'd be writing 54 out of 129, and then to turn that into a percentage, we times it by 100. Once more, we type that in exactly as we see it. Fraction button, 54 over 129 times 100. So it's 41.86 blah blah blah. But we want it, we could write that down just to make sure that we've done the right maths, but then to the nearest whole number, it's either going to be 41 or 42. Look at the next digit over, it's 5 or more, it's more than that, so it's closer to 42. So again, if you've done all the maths and just written it as 41.86, etc., 2 marks. Final instruction is to give it as a nearest whole number. Part B, sharing into a ratio. So when we're in that ratio, we've got to divide that into 6 equal parts. One share gets 5 of those equal parts, the other share gets 1 of those equal parts. So we do 25.8 divided by 6, which is 4.3. So then one part is 5 lots of 4.3, which is 21.5. So 5 parts is 21.5, and 1 part is 4.3. Question 7. The following cards spell out the name Astragunlight. In an experiment, the cards are turned face down and rearranged. A card is selected at random, and the letter on the card is recorded. The experiment is carried out 325 times. How many times would you expect the letter Y to be recorded? Well, first of all, we need to know how many letters there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the probability of getting a y the probability of selecting a y will be out of 13, because there are 13 cards in total, 2 of which are the letter y. So the chances of you selecting a card at random and it being a letter y is 2 out of 13. Now if that's repeated 325 times, to work out how many you would expect the y to turn up, you would do the probability of it happening once multiplied by the number of times that's repeated. Again, you get sick of hearing me saying it, type that into your calculator exactly as you see it. Fraction button 2 over 13 times 325. 50 times. Question 8. So this is the OCW question. In case you haven't watched any of my previous videos, the important thing with that is that doesn't trigger I need to write an essay. All this is telling you is you need to be clear if you write a line of maths what you're working out, and when units are involved you consistently use the correct units. If you do both of those things you will earn those extra 2 marks. So let's have a look at this question. AB is the diameter of a circle centre O with radius OA 4.2 centimeters. ABCD is a square. Calculate the area of the shaded region. So ABCD is a square. So I can calculate the area of the square, because if I know that the radius there is 4.2, that's 4.2 as well, which tells me how far it is from A to B, and then AB and AD are the same. So I can work out the area of the square. What I then have to do is cut out of it the area of half the circle, the semicircle. So I've got 2 area calculations to do: area of a square, area of a circle, half the area of the circle, because that's all that's inside the square, and take them away. So the steps: length of square will be 4.2 plus 4.2, 8.4, and that will be in centimeters. So area of square will be 4.2 times 4.2. Sorry, 8.4 times 8.4. .56. As soon as I'm working in area, it's no longer centimeters, it's centimeters squared. Now I need to work out the area of the circle, which I need to remember that formula, pi times r squared. So for pi times 4.2 squared, you can either use pi as 3.14, which it tells you on the front page. Hang on. Take pi as 3.14 or use the pi button on your calculator. It doesn't matter which you do. We'll use the pi button. The pi button is shift and the times 10. You'll see it just above that button there. So we'll do pi times 4.2 squared, typed exactly as I've written it, equals, and then s to d, and let's give that to 2 decimal places for now, 55.4, and then the next one is a 7, which makes that 2. Area, so it's centimeters squared. So the area of the semicircle will be half of that. Divide by 2, 27.71. So then finally, the area of the shaded region will be the area of the square less area of semicircle. I'm just saying there why I'm subtracting these, which will be 70.56, which is the area of the square, minus the semicircle 27.71. So 70.56 less 27.71, 42.85 centimeters squared. And that's it. So the maths isn't particularly challenging. If you're aiming to get at least a grade C, you need to be able to deal with areas and circumferences of circles, certainly work with areas of squares, so it's just extended that problem a little bit. But those extra 2 marks are just for what's this line of maths doing, what am I working out for 1 mark, and what are my units for the other mark. So the final question to get us beyond the grade C is a mix of algebra and geometry. ABC is an isosceles triangle with AB equal to AC. Calculate the value of y. Now, you need to be careful here. If you dive straight in, then what I expect you would do is to say, all right, okay, angles in a triangle add up to 180, so that one plus that one plus that one equals 180. Entirely understandably you do that, but what you would notice then is, hang on, I've got 2 letters. I've got an X that I don't know and a Y that I don't know. So that line of algebra isn't going to get you very far. So the fact that this is an isosceles gives you another way in. Because you know it's isosceles, you know that the angles at the bottom of the equal sides are the same. So I know that that angle equals that angle. And that's the equation you need to deal with. Okay, so it's a straightforward equation, but it's got unknowns on both sides. First thing we'll do is deal with having x's on both sides. To deal with that, I'm going to take an x off that side, and if I do that, I need to take an x off that side as well. That leaves me 3x minus 3 on that side, and on this side 48. Now I need to get rid of that take 3 by doing the opposite of taking 3, which is adding 3. If I add 3 to that side, I have to do the same to this side. So on this side that just leaves me 3x, and on this side 51. Now to get the x on its own, I have to do divide by 3, because the 3 and the x are joined by times. So if I do that divided by 3, I have to do that divided by 3 as well, giving me x equals, and 51 divided by 3, 17. So x is 17 degrees. What you've then got to do is work out what these angles are going to be. So this angle is going to be 17 plus 48, which is 65. This one is going to be 4 lots of 17, which is 68. Take 3, which is 65, of course, because they're the same, because it's isosceles. So to work out the missing one now, those two come to 130, so y is the difference between 180 and 130, which is 50 degrees. So y equals 50 degrees. 6 marks for that. That gets you well towards a grade B.